Good afternoon, everybody. I'm ABC7's Roz Varon. We are back at the Chicago Auto Show Facebook Live with a fascinating panel of guests today. Of course, today is the inaugural career day for the Chicago Auto Show. So we're going to be talking about different careers in the automotive industry and a lot of things that kind of piggyback on that. So let me introduce you to the folks we have here, and each one of you, I'd just like you to tell a little bit about yourself and what you do, so everybody who's here watching can get an idea of what you do. So LG, why don't you start?
I'm LG Bright. I get the wonderful opportunity to be a professor at Northwood University. My background career was with General Motors in dealership operations.
Danny.
Hi, my name is Danny Lamb. I've been in the Army for 9 years. My job profession is an artillery mechanic in the U.S. Army. I work on these vehicles called Paladins, and I'm glad to be here and to express my experience with you guys.
Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Grimaldi with BMW North America, with BMW Manufacturing, and I do dealer support around the Midwest, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, and I work with dealership personnel and bring technical expertise into the workshop when there are things that are outside of the norm, so to say.
We're going to have you elaborate on that later. And Chris.
Hi, Chris Kadecki here. I'm with the Chicago Auto Show, Director of Auto Show Operations. Welcome and good afternoon.
The first thing I want to ask is, the Chicago Auto Show put together this very first career days. Tell me how that all came about, Chris.
You know, we just realized that dealerships and the auto industry is a really great place to work, and dealerships are a fabulous place to work. They're typically family-owned, family-run, and they offer opportunities that a young person can come in and really excel and grow. So we thought, wow, we got this auto show. Why don't we get some students in here and create a career day and expose them to some of these opportunities that exist for them in the future?
You know, a lot of us think, okay, there's mechanics, they fix the cars, they're the folks in the dealership, they sell the cars, but there's just a realm of things in between. So who wants to talk a little bit about that? LG?
Yeah, there is so many careers within the automotive industry, from the aftermarket to supplier to finance, marketing and management with banks and insurance companies. And so if you ever go to a career page of any organization, from a dealer to a manufacturer, you'll see that it covers the gamut. And so for our young people, the world is your oyster. You can be rock stars, shooting stars, and just automotive stars if you're interested.
You were here for the panel earlier, right?
Yes.
Tell me what the reaction was from the students, because there had to be darn near 1,000 students sitting here.
Enthusiasm, engagement. I saw excitement when they went out to look at the product. Just a wonderful atmosphere. These students are fantastic. I want to do it again.
I'm sure you will be able to next year. Danny, being in the military, were students surprised of the connection in the automotive industry? Yeah.
I actually interacted with a couple of students here. They were very interested. Some of them were actually in our RTC program currently, and they were asking me questions about, like, what do I do in the military, like, for being a mechanic and everything, and what type of vehicles I'll be working on. And I told you, well, being a mechanic in general in the military, we are putting our hands on almost every equipment in the Army, especially like the vehicles here we have at the show. We put our hands on those as well. You will have like some type of training to operate and like work on the vehicles as well. And they enjoyed it. They asked numerous questions about my experience and everything.
You know, I'm curious. I would think if you're not in it for the, lifetime, your 20 years, and just want to do it for maybe, a couple of tours, you could take these skills and get a really good civilian job.
Right, yeah. You could come in, do your first contract, and you could get out and actually you'll be certified, The Army will help you get certified.
Oh, that's great.
in the line of working with diesel, right? And
They're
then
done.
you can come out, hey, you instead of going to school, you could just do your first 3 years and then actually come out with experience. And then when you go out and try to talk to, go get a job and you go do your interview, you can tell them that I have 3 years experience on hand on working on diesel vehicles.
So, Paul, working with BMW, does that do some of these students think, wow, that's a luxury vehicle? Maybe I can't do that. How do you get over that kind of misconception?
Well, I'll tell you, Roz, I do a lot of recruiting events in high schools and post-secondary schools all over the Midwest. And generally what happens is I go in and I do a quick PowerPoint presentation to show them income possibilities, school possibilities, who the local dealer is, take a few pictures of the inside of the workshop with me so that they can see that it's not a dirty, grubby place to work. It's full spectrum lighting and clinker tile floors and the best of equipment. Okay, so then they start to think, well, maybe this is a little over my head. So then, this is high school students, so when you ask them at the end of the presentation, so does anybody have any questions? Nobody wants to say, I don't know that in front of all their friends. So what we do is we have cars set up in the workshop, and we have hoods open, and I say, hey, this is an electric vehicle. It's really complex, isn't it? And I say, well, that's the compressor, the AC, that's the heater, that's the charging electronics. It's very simple. You just need some specific training.
I imagine it's a lot more simplified than a regular gas-burning engine.
Well, but we show them even the technology inside the car. So we have this thing called gesture control, where, you know, when they put the buttons on the steering wheel, it was so you could put your phone down. That was called hands-free.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the engineers at BMW realize if you take your eyes off the road for a split second, and I live in Nashville, so if you take your eyes off the road on 65, everybody's going 80. The thing is, they're 3 car lengths away from each other. So you could get in an accident in a split second. So gesture control, you're able to control the volume, you're able to change radio stations without ever taking your eyes off the road. We call that eyes free. So you're able to control the car by voice commands. So we show them that technology, and then we tell them, you know who's going to fix these cars? You guys. You guys are the ones who have things understood in technology way before any of us on this stage ever learned that technology. So for you, it's simple.
You know, that's really an interesting thought, because the technology has changed so much. I mean, I'm kind of Jurassic, but I mean, since I learned how to drive, since I started doing all this, I mean, I was, you know, there's a lot of things. You can change your own oil, change your tires, do this and this. You can't do that anymore because it's all, the technology is just way, way, way different. Chris, I wanted to ask you, how did you get all these students here? How was that all organized?
Well, we have a student program. We've had a student program for a long time. So we just kind of created the content and we sent it out and said we were going to do this Automotive Career Day. We think that we're going to have some really interesting panels and we're going to have some really interesting content. And once we put that out to the schools, they all gravitated to today. See, we allow these student groups to come in here Monday through Friday and the following Monday. But it seemed like they kind of just said, this is where we want to be. So they're hungry for better education. They're interested in jobs and careers for these young people that are coming out of school. You know, when a kid comes out of school, and Danny can tell you, I had an interesting conversation with him earlier. He actually went to college to be a web designer and then decided he wanted to do something different. Dan, you want to elaborate on that?
Well, right. I was talking to him and I was telling him, yeah, I went to college first before I joined the Army. I went in for web design, and I like to do things with my hands, so I wanted to have new experience and everything, and I want to have first-hand experience. So I was like, hey, why not? Let's try to join the Army. And funny fact is that the reason why I joined the Army is because I was trying to follow my older brother's footsteps, you know. But he told me, don't just go in there and just like, hey, just pick any job. No, do something that you want to do that you're more comfortable. And I told him like, well, I like to do stuff with my hands. And I was talking to my recruiter. I was like, hey, what can I do with my hands to keep myself busy? He showed me the list of options of being a mechanic. So nothing but mechanics. And first thing that popped out was being an artillery mechanic. I was like, man, that sounds awesome. Let me sign up for that.
And LG, wouldn't you think that any dealer would want to have him coming out of the military?
Be lined up to get Danny.
So, LG, talk to me a little bit about some of the students that you recruit and what goes on in your day-to-day job.
Well, we get a lot of dealer kids, but we also get those that are interested in being entrepreneurs. And the automotive industry is rewarding for those that want to be entrepreneurs. A dealer manages 4 and sometimes 8, up to 8 profit centers in a dealership. And so people that are interested in sales and service and parts, but in jobs that change daily, marketing and management in a industry that is not routine, very competitive, and if a student has those type of attributes or characteristics, they're perfect for Northwood.
That's awesome. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get people involved and interested in this. And I have to think to a certain extent for you and for you, it's very fulfilling when you do programs like this and then you see the students come back and say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I mean, for you too, Paul, for all of you. Really, anybody have some stories you want to share?
I'm like a kid in a candy store. I got a 4-hour drive back to Midland, Michigan, and I'm going to listen to the 6 young people that are going to be future rock stars. There's that word again, that are going to be like, again, the kid in the candy store. That's a perfect analogy of what I'm going to hear for 4 hours.
And what I add to that is, we're passionate about our business, and I work for car dealers. They're our members, and the members are our association, and they're really good people, and their businesses are strong, and there's a reason, and they're pillars of the community. They do so much for the communities in which they live in, and it's important that they have young people continually come in, fresh ideas, fresh people coming in and keep these dealers working because they are the backbone of all the communities. So they need young people. It's extremely important to have young people who are you just want to come and work.
Sometimes I feel, and this is not just the automotive industry, but I think in general, we're in a strange time right now where it's very difficult to find employees. It's difficult to find people who want to work. So how do you overcome that challenge by getting young people interested in this industry? Paul, you're shaking your head. You got some answers.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, Roz. I've been doing recruiting events for about 3 years now, and I'll tell you one specific incident in Indianapolis at Northern High School in the J. Everett Light Career Center, which is one of the 4 high schools in the perimeter of Indianapolis. It's a career center, and they have an automotive program, and I was in there, and we did our presentation, and we had some cool cars set up outside, of course, and I came back out to the car as students were leaving on the buses and whatnot, and there was a young gentleman sitting there, and his hair was kind of over his face a little bit, and he was holding onto the steering wheel looking down. And I said, do you have any questions? He looked up at me and he had tears in his eyes. And he said, this is what I've been waiting for. This is what I want to do. And it was such an aha moment in Jeffrey's eyes and in his life. He is now in his senior year at Ivy Tech, and he's in the automotive program, and he's working, being mentored as an apprentice at Dreyer & Reinbold BMW.
Wow.
And so there's kids like this all over. And what we do when we go in and do these events is we show them a slice of the automotive industry because they have no idea. You were talking about why there's such a deficit. It's because if you go on Career Builder or Indeed and you read about why blue-collar workers are so low in the U.S. ever than before, it's because sometimes the education system in this country teaches our youth that they're not going to amount to anything unless they go to a 4-year school. And that is not the truth. You look at the European model, and yes, BMW is a European country, but I will tell you, BMW's largest manufacturing facility is right here in the United States, and we export more vehicles from this country than we import.
Really?
Yes. So, as an American manufacturer, we still stick to the principles of apprenticeship from the older European way of doing it, which is an apprenticeship means you have a mentor, and most of the learning comes from working with your hands and seeing with your eyes the way to do something.
How long is the apprenticeship?
It depends on what your level of education is. You can come into a workshop right after high school and show your worth with your character and your work ethic, and that dealership could make a decision to send you to the apprentice step program. And in the apprentice step program, you go to school for 2 weeks, you come back to the dealership for 2 weeks. You do that back and forth for, I think it's 4 or 5 months. And at the end of that, you are a certified BMW technician just under that level. And that is a very lucrative position to be in.
I'll bet.
In within a year of getting out of high school. So there's a lot of interest in that.
You know, I wonder, do you think a lot of people really don't understand the importance of certified technician for particular vehicles? It's like, oh, I'm not going to spend that money. I'm just going to go over to my local blah, 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 blah. It's much cheaper. But, there, you know, sometimes you get what you pay for.
Well, Chris will tell you dealers have to overcome the old stigma of the dealers are just trying to take your money.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And that's such a misnomer.
It is a misnomer, and part of it is just the equipment it takes now to service a vehicle. You just can't get that anywhere. Dealers invest huge sums of money to make sure that their technicians have each and every tool available to them to fix that car, fix it right the first time. So you're not bringing it back a second time. And I'm sure the Army's the same way. They provide you with the proper tools so that you can do the job.
That's correct.
These cars today are so technologically advanced that when I was their age, when I was high schooler age, I could work on my cars. There was a lot of things I could do to my car.
But you can't
I
do
cannot
that now.
do that any longer.
No.
And rather an advantage that these kids have today is they're so technology driven. They're on their phones all the time, their devices all the time. They speak a different language. So when the cars are going that way and the diagnosis is happening that way, they already understand the technology. It's like a language they speak that maybe I don't speak as well as they do. But they grew up with that. So they have an advantage here. They're perfectly set up to come into a dealership and be that employee like right away.
So aside from all of the tech and the mechanics, talk about some unexpected careers in the auto industry. Anybody?
Well, one of them is F&I, finance and insurance. The ability to go into an office and arrange the financing that so many of these automobiles and trucks and SUVs are dependent on, and then the products that a consumer can both purchase and use to protect his investment. So, you know, a lot of young people wouldn't think about finance and insurance, but that's a position in a dealership. It's a high income position, and it's one that takes special skill, not only salesmanship, but compliance and regulation. One thing that people don't realize is that a dealership is looked at as a bank. You get a chance to meet your loan officer if you're going out for a mortgage, but you get your financing at a dealership. You'll get your coupon book from the finance company or bank, but the only person you'll ever meet is the person at the dealership. And so building trust, building into the customer experience, that's all important to an F&I manager.
So that goes back to my daughter, who is now 28, but as a young kid, why do I have to learn math? I'll never use that for anything. Wrong. Yeah, it's a lot of applicable things in day-to-day life. So that's a really good point. Thank you.
I think the point that's been made is being made here is that dealerships aren't just the sales guy or the mechanic.
Right.
There's
right.
a lot of jobs in the dealership, and so if you don't like what you're doing, say you got into the ecosystem, and you didn't like what you were doing, there's plenty of opportunities to do something else, and they're always looking to help you with that. Dealers are very generous that way.
Danny, I want to ask you, with the skills that you have learned in mechanics through the Army, what do you hope to do with that skill set?
Chicago.
The skill set that I acquire while being in the military and then being in the position I am right now, what I gain from them is leadership skill and management skill, because that's what we do in the maintenance bay in the Army, right? We got micromanage what vehicles come in, what vehicles come out, what parts to order, actually organizing the parts and setting them aside to which vehicles they go to specifically. So using those skills, I'm hoping to actually, for my profession or my personal desire, is to take it out to outside the Army and go like real estate. You know, like actually go into like managing my own business one of these days. Actually, one of these days, I'm actually gonna help manage my wife's business one of these days. So I'm actually gonna take my skills and actually put it into good use through the military.
That's so awesome. So a couple of you have mentioned certain jobs in the auto industry are a pretty high pay level. So can we throw some numbers out there? I mean, I'm not expecting you to say, well, you know, you can make $1 million doing this, but I mean, you know, start at some of these jobs and where it could go to.
I think a journeyman technician or a master technician, if journeyman is a unionized term, so if you're a union dealership, that's a journeyman. And master tech in a non-union dealership, for example, I want to say that they can make about $80,000 to $85,000 a year, just in that level there, and it can grow from there. That's based on a regular 40-hour work week. Dealers work on a book job, a book time. So if a job pays 3 hours and the technician can get it done in 2, they're still going to get paid 3. So they can work 8 hours and maybe they can get paid for 12 in a day. So if they can log in 70 hours of work in a week, they're going to make a lot more than that. And it's just about how efficient they are. And it's not working fast, it's working efficient, right? And the better you get, the more times you do the job, the better you get at it. You get really good at producing. And then that production translates into pay for you.
It also translates into income for the dealership. So many shops now, you don't figure out what parts you need and then go to the parts department and get it. You just punch into the computer what you need and someone brings it to you. You don't have to leave your work stall to go do something. So top BMW technicians in the U.S. are in the $150,000 a year range.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And for us, I mean, we see across the spectrum, automotive industry, especially retail, is uncapped income. So if you are looking for an income level, you shoot at anything, and there'd be somebody there. You know, I don't like to lead with income because everybody's different across the spectrum.
Of course.
But it can be uncapped. I can show you the dealers that own sports teams and the dealers that you know have recently sold their businesses for billions. That's with a B, billions of dollars. So
You just have to look at the naming rights on the sports
There
thing.
you go,
You know
there you
what
go.
we're talking about here, right? So I wanted to ask all of you individually some of your fondest memories and why you got into this business yourself. I'm going to start with Chris.
Well, so I actually started working in this convention center a long, long time ago, but then I always managed the Chicago Auto Show. But before I was part of that, I was a fan of the show. I came here with my sister almost every year. It was something we did together. So I was an auto show enthusiast, okay? I just loved coming here. And then I had this opportunity after college to come and work at McCormick Place and then actually manage the auto show from the facility side. And 15 years later, I was actually recruited to come over and work for the auto show itself. So I've been doing this for a long time, and there's just something about it that it's where I feel comfortable, and that's what drew me in.
You know, it's all of you, when you talk about what you do, you have this passion and this enthusiasm. It really comes across. Paul, your earliest memories, how'd you get where you are?
So earliest memories, I was 8 years old and I worked in my grandfather's shell station. I had grown up with my uncle and my grandfather, and my dad was an educator. So he said, you know what, you still have to go to school, but just if you want to be an auto technician, auto mechanic, just be the best one you can be. So that working with my hands and taking something that's broken and fixing it, I think was what my passion was.
Annie, we heard your story about going from a web designer into the Army, but talk about, like, once you were in the Army and you started learning mechanics, what was, like, your earliest, most fulfilling memory?
The most fulfilling memory was that I was able to touch in every single vehicle that was out there. Not only just my job, like on the howitzers and everything. I was able to touch like also the wheel vehicles, the other track vehicles. Like the fondest memory was just being able to touch every single piece of equipment that we had in the motor pool and work on it.
That's really cool. It's like, I had a part in that. I had a part in that. I had a part in that. That was me. I love that.
Exactly.
Roz, for me, it's almost Valentine's Day, but meeting my wife 38 years ago as a district manager for Kmart Automotive. That dates me, right? Kmart Automotive.
Okay, I know what that is. So that dates me too.
Getting the chance to, to work and to satisfy customers as a young person, to see these young people today, it just brings it full circle for me. So a great old memory and a great new memory.
Very sweet. All right, so we're getting close to wrapping time. So I want every one of you to, your best advice to a young person who wants to get into the automotive industry. Go ahead.
Be enthusiastic, and you'll go far. Make relationships every day.
Accept the challenge, willing to take the challenge, and overcoming the challenge.
Jump in with both feet, work for a great dealership, and you can't go wrong.
And I would just say find something you love to do and do it as best as you can do it.
Because when you love your job, it isn't work. Right?
So true, so true.
All right. That does it for us today on Facebook Live here at the Chicago Auto Show. Some really great advice from our panel of gentlemen here talking about careers in the automotive industry. Join us tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow at noon with a whole nother topic and a whole nother panel. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.